Oops, wrong one. There we go. Okay. Hey everyone, good to see you and welcome to our very first special guest live stream. I'm joined with Christopher Nakihashi. Thanks for taking time to join us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. So this is a new kind of content on Tostemac where I interview either autistic people or relatives of autistic people as they share their story and experience with us, and along with any advice they may have. So, before we get started on the questions, why don't we start with a brief introduction for yourself?
Sure. So my name is Christopher. I live in New Hampshire. I'm 40 years old. I'm married and I have a one son. His name is Axel. He's about two and a half. He's napping right now, fortunately. Otherwise, my computer would be all over the place. Um, I went to college in my early 30s to be a dental hygienist, and I do that today. And I love a lot of the same things that Steven loves. I love Sonic the Hedgehog. I love Mario. A lot of Nintendo and Sega games. Um, I love building things. That's something I do in my pastime. If I'm not playing a video game, is I like to make things. I build furniture. I built my son his crib, which was like a big milestone for me. I was really
Oh,
excited about
wow.
that. It was a very daunting project, and it's full of flaws, but it's really sturdy and safe, and he loves it. So I'm happy about that. Um, and let's see, what else do I like to do? I'm also or I was a martial artist. I hold a black belt in ancient Shaolin Kung Fu.
Oh,
I haven't
wow.
done it. I haven't done it in a very long time, but it was a lot of fun, and it was very confidence boosting and very focusing. And I can touch on that later. And I think I answered that in one of the questions. Was a big part in helping me gather confidence and focus and helping me function better as an autistic adult.
That's awesome. It's always great to learn certain like skill sets or build things to help build confidence and whatnot because that's very important to have. So,
Absolutely.
um, our first question is: while we were talking beforehand, you mentioned you were undiagnosed for about 30 years. Like you got the diagnosis like much later. So,
hmm
what got you to see a neurologist to get the diagnosis, and how did you react to the news?
Well, I'll answer the second part of that question first. My reaction was I was very relieved, believe it or not. I had always known that there was something different about me, and I never knew what it was or why. And I'll expand on that in a minute. So when I finally got like an official legal diagnosis, it was just like it was, like the clouds opened up, and I had an answer to one of the biggest questions of my life, which is why I was the way I am. Why am I so different? And having that knowledge was relieving and empowering to know that there wasn't just like I had an answer to this giant question. It was just, it was just like, beating on the inside of my head for so long. Like, why am I so different? So, what drew me to that was, I was born in the 80s. So that was kind of when we were just starting to get more and more information about like high functioning autism or formerly known as Asperger's syndrome. That's what it was called when I was a kid.
Yeah, same
And,
here. It's like, and it's been that way for like a very long time. It's only recently that people started to like shift away from that and focus more on like high functioning autism or like I think they also call it level 1 autism because from what I heard like recently they were like making it into like 3 different levels, which I mean I guess it helps a little better with like keeping things organized and not so much like a range or a spectrum where there's like a bit of a gray area.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that. I feel like a lot of what makes the spectrum is a lot of gray areas. Like I know a lot of people that are very high functioning that they can do almost anything that a neurotypical person can do, but they just can't look you in the eyes, and that's kind of their one big thing. Or the other way around, there's someone that can look you in the eyes, but doesn't understand nuanced communication like neurotypical people do, and that's their one thing. And there's so many different things that I've seen high functioning autistic adults exhibit or not exhibit, and that's what really makes it a really broad spectrum.
All right. Um yeah, so like when you were mentioning like the questions like why am I different, like I actually feel that because like when I was in elementary school I had this feeling like when I was in the special needs section of the class, like I felt like I fit right in, but when I was going to
hmm
like outside recess and like going into like regular ed classes, it seemed like there was such a big gap or like a stark difference between me and those students. And it was at that point that got me thinking like what's going on, why am I so different from them? And that's kind of what got me into like learning about autism in the first place.
hmm
Was just noticing that huge difference between the people I hanged out in special needs classes versus like those I hanged out in like the regular ed classes.
hmm
So I definitely definitely feel that. Um, and you mentioned that you felt relieved that you got answers. Now,
Hmm.
with the official diagnosis, did you also like get access to like certain services to help you, or was it a bit more scarce for those that are like in their adult years? Because I feel like there's such a big focus on like autistic children, but
Hmm.
not really enough on autistic adults. At least that's what I think.
I absolutely agree with you, Stephen. I mean, I did not get really any access to services. I have it written down on a piece of paper that's just like a legal diagnosis, and it hasn't really done anything for me from like a healthcare point of view. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of resources. There's more. I'm finding more and more therapists now that specialize in high functioning autism that are more comfortable with servicing adults, but that's very, very recent. So for a long time, you're right. The focus was on kids, which is very important, and that's great to have. But for a lot of us, especially people who are older, the early millennials or Gen X people, or even older than that, they don't really have a lot of services for people like that. But a lot of us do still need some kind of care, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's like I feel like what the people in charge or like the health providers, what they need to understand is that yes, there's a lot of focus on autistic children, and it's important to nurture a child's growth. But it's like it's not like autism stops at childhood. It's something you have for the rest of your life. So I feel like people need to like get over the notion that it just ends at childhood. It's just like as adults, we can learn to like adapt better and like learn different things, but that doesn't mean the autism just magically goes away.
Exactly. That's 100% true
Yeah.
for sure.
So, the second question is, you mentioned that you're married and you have a kid. So,
Hmm.
what is it like being married? Asking someone who's unfortunately not had any luck with dating.
That's I've been there for a very long portion of my life, Stephen. You're not alone. It was I have to be honest, I'm very lucky to be married. My wife also exhibits a little bit of being on the spectrum, which is interesting because it does seem to present very different in girls and women than it does in boys and men.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it's because like usually women in general are like more socially aware of things.
mhm.
At least according to what people research about.
Yeah, that's definitely the case, and all the time, like we'll be out somewhere and something will happen, and I'll turn to my wife and I'll be like, "What does that mean?" And she'll be able to explain it to me. I know I'll once in a while the reverse will happen, and I'll understand something and she won't, and I'll have to explain it to her. But usually she's the one that has the answers for things like that. So being married is honestly wonderful. I've only dated a few people over the course of my life, but my wife today is we love a lot of the same things. We play games together. We're both dental hygienists, so we have a lot to talk about at the end of the day.
Nice.
Um, we have a lot of the same values and morals as adults. And something that I've noticed and I've also done research on is that a lot of people on the autism spectrum often don't need lots of friends. They just need one good one. And for my wife and I, that's us. She's my one excellent, awesome friend all the time. We do everything together, and I'm hers, vice versa. So that really fills that social need for an autistic person, but it's not overbearing like if you are in a classroom of 20 kids and they're all doing their own thing. And it's a very different dynamic, and it's very, very healthy. We're very happy with how we have that together.
Well, that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. And like, I definitely get the notion of like, get the idea of like, only having like a few friends. And like for me personally, I remember back when I was a kid, I was competing with my older brother about like, oh, I have more friends. No, I have more friends. More, no, I have more friends. Eh. And it's like over time, when you experience more and more in life, you begin to realize that, it's not necessarily the quantity of friends, it's more like the quality of friends, those that, have your back. And it's like, yeah, I get along with a lot of people at work, but there's only like a rare few that I actually call like, a true friend. And like at this point in my life, I'm kind of okay with that. And it's like I'm so happy to hear that you have such a wonderful relationship with your wife, because like something like that doesn't um, something like that doesn't come in people's lives on a regular basis. Like what you two have is like something really special, and I'm glad to hear that it's going really well. You have a kid, so it's like very happy for you. So, what is it
Thank you.
like being a father?
Being a father is probably the most wonderful thing I've ever done with my life, Stephen. It's so hard to put into words. It's one of those things that once you become one, you know. And all I can say is kind of in the same wheelhouse of, having that one friend. Something that's really special about having my own son, and even though he's only 2.5, he's already exhibiting a lot of things that I do, both just personality wise and spectrum wise. And to have someone in my house who's so much like me is also like relieving, like to have like a little buddy that, thinks the way I do and wants to do the things that I want to do, and are on like the same wavelength, because that's so hard to find out in the world. And I mean,
Yeah,
he's
especially these days. It's like everything's
yeah.
gone so digital, and people are not really, socializing as much as
Mhm.
we used to back in the day. And it's like, part of it has to do with technology, but another part of it has to do with the pandemic, how we were like isolated from each other for so long. I feel like, that still has an effect on us that let me get my words right, still has an effect on us in terms like reaching out and just talking to people. So it's like I definitely feel that, where it's like it is harder these days to interact with people when going out there, trying to make friends and whatnot. So
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So on top of that, just there's just an unbelievable amount of love in that relationship between, parents and children that again I couldn't put into words. I mean, my wife and I went to the hospital together with two of us, and we left with three. Like it was just this miracle. I was there for every minute. I watched him be born into this world. It was just an incredible experience, and
wow.
just like from the second he was there, my wife and I were just like, speechless with the adoration we have for this new child that we created together. And that's just it's always with you, and it's just an undescribable love that I can't describe. It's undescribable, and it's just a wonderful experience.
And sometimes that's a wonderful thing, where it's like you experience something that you just can't put into words, and maybe words aren't necessary. It's just the experience itself. So like sorry, I'm just I guess I'm speechless now. So it's like I'm really happy for you, and it's great that things are going well with your wife, things are going well with your kid, and like you two are interested in doing the same things. Um, yeah, it's really cool.
Thank
So
you.
let's see. Let's move on to the next question. Let's see. So so some of the viewers and some people on Facebook have noticed, and I'm not sure if we can answer this or not.
Mhm.
In terms of like being an autistic parent, are there some aspects you think that may feel different from like a neurotypical parent raising a child?
That's a great question. I think for the most part, parents either neurotypical or atypical are going to face a lot of the same challenges, but it's how those challenges are received that make us different. A neurotypical parent might come home to a mess from their little kid, and assuming that there's also somebody home with the kid as well. And you just be like, "Oh, my kid, he made a mess. Kids will be kids," and then they just clean it up, and it's no big deal. But for people on the spectrum, I have a very specific way that I function every day. Like I have things set up just right to remind me to like take my medication, or remind me to brush my teeth, to remind me to not lock myself out of the house, so my keys are in just the right spot. And I've had to continuously move things to higher and higher places as he gets taller. But when things are out of place, like as you know, if you mess up an autistic person's routine in the morning, it can throw off their whole day. And that's happens frequently when you have a little troublemaker running around. So that's a big stressor. That's definitely been a challenge. But I've learned a lot of patience over the course of my life, and I exhibit that to the best of my ability. And while it drives me nuts, I understand that he's a kid. He's not doing it on purpose. He doesn't understand. And I know that it's temporary. He's going to grow up soon, before we know it. Kids always grow up fast, and he's going to have those same routines that I have, and he's going to understand, and he's going to be like, "Wow, Dad, I'm so sorry. I flushed your keys down the toilet when I was a kid. I understand how important it is to not do that anymore." That didn't actually happen. I made that up. But so that's kind of exciting to kind of see him like grow and learn, and then also be able to be there to teach him like, hey, this is what I struggle with functioning in a neurotypical world, but this is what I did to cope with that, and I'm going to teach you that skill as well.
Nice. Yeah, so it's like I get the feeling with my routines, especially like, in the morning or when you had to go out somewhere. It's like you plan every little detail out, but then it's just like one little thing goes wrong, it just derails the whole thing.
Oh yes. Oh my goodness. Ah.
But yeah, it's like there's also structure and routine. Um and I also feel like, like I'm not a parent, so like I have no idea. So it's like it does make me kind of think like how much does autism have a factor into this, because like it's not just the autism, it's also like people, it's like different people, different ways of life, different beliefs, different experiences.
Mhm.
So it's like there are multiple factors when it comes to like a parent raising a child. So in terms so like aside from like structures and routines, do you feel like there are any other particular factors that might be affected, or is it mainly just that?
Hmm. I think it's that for the most part. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I think that's probably for me anyway. That's really the big thing. It's just the constant changing to the routine. Um, I guess maybe from a sensory aspect, if he's having a meltdown and he's screaming and it's just this piercing sound that would could bother most people, but especially if you have the sensory input limitations, that can be a little stressful too. But that doesn't happen too often, fortunately.
Well, that's
That's
good.
probably that's probably about it, I would think.
All right. All right, so moving on to the next question. We were also talking about you finding different coping skills and survival techniques. So, would you mind, sharing some of them? And what exactly do you find? Yeah, what exactly do you define as a survival technique, as opposed to like a coping skill?
I guess the phrase is kind of synonymous. I guess I kind of exaggerate with the term survival skill, because a lot of us, at least I, felt like there were some days before I knew I was autistic, and even after that, I would go out into the world and work a job where I had to work with people. I used to work in retail before I was a hygienist and answer phones and stuff, and that's very stressful. So I knew that I had to do certain things to survive the day because it was just so stressful and overbearing. So I call them survival skills. We can just call them coping skills if that's a little
Well,
bit more appropriate.
it does kind of hit the nail on the head, especially when it comes like a full time job, like in my workplace, which is a retail store. There are like some things that I do at work that I don't typically do here.
Hmm.
Like masking's one of them. And it's like, for me, it's kind of a necessity in order to, A, keep my job, and B, make sure everything at the workplace is like, up and running, and making sure that there's no trouble stirred up. So it's like, I can see like a difference between like survival techniques and coping skills, like where it's like coping skills they help you with certain situations, like if you have to deal with those, and then like survival techniques could be like the essentials of what you would have to do in this kind of environment in order to make sure everything runs smoothly. So I could definitely
Hmm.
see a distinction between the two.
Okay. Um, let's see. I wrote down quite a few things for this. Um, So the first thing I usually recommend, especially for people on the spectrum who are looking to, further their career and maybe be independent, is to pursue a career that suits their personal needs. Very common Asperger jobs are things like engineering, software development, data analyst, or financial. Anything that usually can limit social interaction. Not that we don't want to see people, but we don't want to see a lot of people because that can be trying
Yeah.
to read everybody and then trying to mask and emulate every single person. Like you working in retail, I'm sure you can sympathize how that
Oh
feels.
yeah, there's some
Yeah.
days where it could be like so crowded. There's long lines, and then there's like people that called out, so we don't exactly have
Oh,
backup, and
yes.
then like people in line are getting frustrated, like, oh come on, you should have been
Hmm.
out of here by now. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
why was that my problem? You're the one that shopped here.
I
So
know that
I
feeling very
definitely
well.
understand that.
Yeah. So I mean, of course, when you're young and just getting started, it's good to, just kind of get around and get a feel for things. But I mean, very quickly, I worked a couple of jobs. I worked at Wendy's when I was a teenager. I worked at Walgreens for 8 years as a pharmacy technician, which was interesting. I learned a lot about it, but it was a lot of face-to-face interactions with people. And some days there were just people in a line out the door, and it was just nonstop, and everybody was different, had a different persona, a different mood, and I had to try and figure that out on the fly. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes you say just the wrong thing to the wrong person, and then it's a big deal. And
Oh yeah, I've
you
dealt
know
with
how that
that.
goes. Yeah. So having a job that can limit that can certainly be very beneficial for an autistic person's mental health. So like any of the aforementioned jobs. Working in the trades can be really good too. The people that work in the trades can be kind of hit or miss, but when I'm doing work on the house, I actually really enjoy it. I'll go out at 7, 8 in the morning to do like a renovation or something, and I'll be doing like carpentry and electrical, and I'm just in my own little world, and I don't even know what time it is. Like my wife will come out and get me, like all wrapped up in a blanket, and I can see her breath, and she's like, "Are you gonna come have dinner?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? I just got out of here." She's like, "No, it's like 9 o'clock at night. You've been out here for like 14 hours." I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea." Because I'm just so comfortable in that own little world where I'm just alone and doing my own thing and I'm hyper focusing on it.
Yeah,
So
it's like
jobs
when you're
like
so
that,
focused on something, you kind of lose track of everything else sometimes.
absolutely. So jobs like that tend to be not only comfortable for a lot of us, but also we're very, very productive in things like that. Like if you can sit down and hyper focus on something that you really enjoy, like engineering software or carpentry or something, and just like go to town, is usually one of the better careers to get into. That also have good financial reward as well. Um, I myself am a dental hygienist, and I chose that job because I exhibited a lot of autistic symptoms. That was before I even knew that I was on the spectrum. I think I got that diagnosis after I got my degree, but I noticed before I even knew I was on the spectrum that I have a very difficult time looking people in the eyes. I usually look at their mouths, and I was like, oh well, if I work on teeth, that I can look at people's mouths all day and no one will question that.
Fair enough.
Um, and it's I still have to work with people, but it's a one-on-one experience and it's scheduled and structured, and that's very easy for me to manage. And sometimes I'll see 10 patients a day, but I see them every, like 50, 60 minutes. So I can depend on that. I'll put little notes from the last time I saw them so I can read them ahead of time and prepare for, okay, this person likes this with the chair. They want to talk about this or they don't want to talk at all. And I can be mentally prepared and have a structure set up and ready to go. And that's very, very easy for me to manage on a mental and emotional level. That's very, very low stress for me. So that's another job if people don't mind working in healthcare, and also has a very good income as well.
That's awesome. So it's like you found a job that really suits you well, making a lot of money out of it. And it's also like, it's a job where it's like, it's something you really care about. And it's something that, it's not really that stressful at the same time. Like you mentioned, like you're not working with a bunch of people. It's just like a one on one experience, which is far less stressful. And
Hmm.
sounds like things are going really well for you. Like, how long have you been doing the dental job for?
I've been doing that for 10 years now, which is crazy. I feel like I graduated
Wow.
yesterday. I know.
Where'd all the time go?
I don't know. As soon as you graduate high school, man, time just goes out the window.
I know, right?
It's
This sucks.
crazy. I know. Oh,
It's like,
um,
hey, I don't think I paid for the extra time. Can I have it back?
yeah. Some days I'm like, can I have that day back? Oh,
All right.
so some other skills. One of the great skills that high functioning autism people have is emulation. You mentioned masking earlier, which is something that is a powerful tool, but can definitely be exhausting. And I kind of expanded on how I use that to my benefit. So something that we have is emulation, and you may know, or you myself may do this, or you may know people on the spectrum that can, sit down and study somebody for like all of 20 minutes, and they'll behave just like them, like a clone. And it's a really powerful skill because not only does that help us fit in and learn about people, but it also helps us function in a neurotypical world where we're not sure what to say to these people, we're not sure how to behave, not because everything we do is wrong, but there are some people out there that are more sensitive for whatever reason, and if you say the wrong thing to the right person, as we discussed before, it can turn into a big social mess. um,
Yeah.
so using the emulation and really mastering it, like I'll spend hours, like between driving to work or back in the car or in the mirror at home in the bathroom, going over things that I've learned from people's behavior and rehearsing things to myself, learning to talk more slowly. A lot of the times when we're anxious, which is very common, we'll talk really fast like this. Nobody can hear us like that, and nobody can hear what we're saying because we're not sure what to say or what to be, or how to feel, and that can exacerbate poor communication. Um, so I've mastered that, and I've also done something a little bit different from masking, which I've read can cause autistic burnout. I'll do like I'll adapt like a persona where I'll emulate people's behaviors over the years, and this takes a lot of time. And I'll take bits and pieces of things that I like, because sometimes you'll emulate somebody and you'll be like, "Wow, I really don't like that person's behavior. I don't like that person's mood." And it doesn't feel good to behave that way, but you have to kind of get through that social interaction with them. But I've also emulated people that I've really enjoyed, and I'd be like, oh, I really like how this person said this. I really like how they have this inflection. And I'll take little pieces of it, and I'll kind of build a persona of myself, of things that I like and I've learned from other people, and I'll kind of amalgamate them all together into something that's more like me, but is a communication that neurotypical people can understand. It's not foolproof. I definitely still have hard days with specific people, but
Mhm.
generally I function a lot better in a neurotypical world, and it's a lot less stressful, and I have a lot less burnout by the time I'm done.
So you mentioned doing this emulating could potentially lead to burnout. Is it like it's because that we act so different from how we usually do, or is it like doing it so much, or
I guess that depends on who you ask. For me, I think it would have to be specific people. I've definitely had interactions with people that I was unprepared to have a conversation with, or even just some people that can be difficult to work with in general. And I would have to emulate and mask really heavily to make it through the social confrontation to the end. And when you have somebody in the dental chair for 50 minutes, that can feel like a really long time. And by the time they leave, I'll just like turn around and go to the break room and just go, oh,
yeah, just breathe that sigh of relief, like, oh,
yeah,
it's
yes.
finally over.
And if I have like 4 or 5 people like that in a day, which is rare, like I'll get in my car and go home, and I'm just like, I'm gonna go get a giant pizza and sit down on the couch and watch anime and do nothing else for
Oh
the
yeah,
rest of the
I've had
night.
those days where it's like, I'm just gonna grab a quick bite, maybe watch someone else live stream, or like,
Hmm.
play some video games or stuff. It's like
Hmm.
it's one of those days where it's like I don't want to do anything else that day.
Absolutely. So that still is going to happen. That's an inevitability. There's just going to be some people that just don't mesh well with you. And that's true even for non-autistic people. There are
Yeah, that's
just
just
people
part
that
of
will just
life.
think that that's just part of life, and that's something else you just have to kind of like radically accept. There's just some people that that's not going to work with, and you just do the best you can. So but developing that kind of like real persona of you with little pieces of emulation and skills that you learn from other people that you like, and build your own persona out of, can be helpful, and like lower stress, lower intensity, and less burnout, and still help you communicate with neurotypical people on the day-by-day basis.
Cool. All right, so we got one last question, and then I'm going to ask the chat if they have any questions of their own. So the last question on the list is like, if you have any advice for our viewers about, your experience with autism, being an autistic parent, or any advice that would be helpful, like if you were to give advice to people watching this either now or maybe watching this later, what would it be?
Biggest piece of advice I can say is always have hope and always believe in yourself. There's a lot of stigma surrounding our condition, and a lot of it comes from other people on the spectrum as well. I've spent a little bit of time on Reddit and an autism Discord, both of which I'm not a part of anymore because there's just a lot of negativity there,
Yeah, especially
and
on Reddit, like those could get very
yeah,
toxic really fast.
very, and you can feed off of it really quickly and think less and less about yourself. So get off of that stuff, focus on yourself. Something that I love to do is meditation, and really journey inside yourself. Learn as much as you can about yourself. It takes a long time, it takes years, but even just taking 15 minutes a couple days a week to just sit down in a quiet place, de-stress, and really think about your day. Think about how you feel, how your mind works. Really go inside and discover yourself and realize that you're not just a person on the spectrum, you're not just a label, you're a real living breathing human being with thoughts and feelings and ambitions of your own, and nobody can take that away from you. Not a label, not bullies at school, not that jerk at work. That's you are in control of your own life, and you have the power to do what you want to do with that life. You just have to strive for it.
That's awesome. That's definitely some amazing advice because, like, believing in yourself, having hope, like it could be hard at times, especially if you're thinking about everything that's going on in the outside world, like stuff about the negative news or what's going on in like the economy or the job
Hmm.
market or other countries and whatnot. Like it could be a lot to take in, and it's like
Absolutely.
thinking about those kind of things where it's like it can make you feel small, it can make you feel like powerless, like nothing you do
Mm,
matters. But it's like if you take those factors away and not focus on like the things you can't control and focus more on like what you can control, what you can do, I feel like it becomes a lot more manageable. So it's
mhm.
like I can't fix the economy, but it's like I can focus on making content that people enjoy and working on stuff with best buddies. And it's like when I'm working on stuff that I can do and making differences there, that really helps with keeping me confident in my skills and what I do. So it's like that mindset really makes a big difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I've had periods of time in my life. I had some trauma in my childhood. My parents are divorced, and for a long time, I did feel really hopeless. I was undiagnosed. I had a mixed family. I bounced around from homes. For a very brief period, I was homeless. Not like living on the street, but I was, like couch surfing between a few different friends' houses. And it's easy to get discouraged, especially when if you don't understand, why you are the way you are, or if you don't understand why the world works the way it does. But
Yeah.
I mean, I literally woke up one morning and I said, you know what? I'm an adult. Whatever is wrong with me is just how I am, but I'm gonna find a way to make myself better. I'm in control of my life, and I'm not gonna let anything take that away from me. And it was a
Exactly.
long, hard journey, but I did it. I mean, it took me a lot. I'm 40 now. It took me a long time to get there, but I did everything I set out to do,
Nice.
and here I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Bachling says, I don't care what anyone says. Naruto is an autistic metaphor. I relate to the story so much. I can see that when, some of the characters, like maybe a little bit of Naruto and, maybe Rock Lee also, the one that can only do taijutsu, is trained under my guy, and, may not always get the cues with squad mates like Tenten and Neji. God, I'm sounding like a total
Hmm.
nerd right now.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Ironically is especially interesting because that's a great example of using an autistic strength to your advantage. And like you said,
Exactly.
Rock Lee can't do ninjutsu or genjutsu. He just does taijutsu,
But he
but he
does it so
mastered it.
well.
He's so good at. He said, "I can only do this, but I'm going to be the best at it." And he did it. He had that
Exactly.
that hope, that fire, and he mastered it. And now he's like, I don't even. What did he open up the eighth gate at the end of the series? I can't remember.
Actually, it was Mike Guy that opened the eighth
Mike
gate
guy did
against
that.
Madara, and the downside of opening the eighth gate is typically you die.
Yes, I remember
But
that.
of course, Naruto with the sixth stage path thing was able to get back up. But like my guy was like permanently crippled afterwards. So like
Hmm.
in the future, like Rock Lee actually becomes a teacher in terms of like teaching others the ways of the ninja. So it's like it's kind of inspiring where it's like this guy who can't do two big things about being a shinobi, which is like genjutsu and ninjutsu, is like an
Hmm.
absolute master of taijutsu, and now he's teaching others. You know, that's kind of inspiring in a way.
Absolutely. That's huge inspiration. I think we can draw a lot of inspiration from, video game heroes, anime heroes. I just got a new truck and my license plate has a picture of Vegeta on it from Dragon Ball
Oh,
Z. And
nice.
it says Prince of Saiyans. And I'm like, when I go to the gym, I'm the Prince of Saiyans, like I'm gonna lift all this weight and I let it empower me to the best of my ability.
Yeah, for me, like I also think about Captain Yami from Black Clover, and one of his big things is push past your limits.
Yes. I'm so excited for the next season to come out. Does that come out this year, I think?
Actually, I think it does come out this year. I don't remember when exactly, but it's supposed to. Like, I'm kind of curious, like, is it going to release the sub first and then the dub, or like if it's going to be like a simulcast? Because I've noticed with a lot of the more recent anime, they've actually done a bit of simulcast where it's like they either release them both at the same time, or it's like the first week is the sub and then the next week is the dub. But we'll see. Like, I'm very excited for that. Like, Black Clover is
Absolutely.
actually really inspiring for me. With Asta, who's like, he can't do any magic, but now has this like anti-magic grimoire, and he's kind of like soaring through the ranks. In a world where
Hmm.
it's like those without magic, they're kind of like shunned and made fun of, but like Asta's here, like proving it through his own sheer will and determination.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Faith actually has a question, and she
Sure.
writes, "What can you do to de-stress if you can't find a quiet enough place to calm yourself?" Like, I'm thinking maybe out in public where it's like you don't exactly have a set quiet place.
That is a great question, and that can be a great issue for a lot of us, especially if we're minors and we can't move out yet, and we have to deal with whatever's going on, and maybe in a small home, or if there's something else going on, or if you are out in public, or you just haven't gotten yourself established yet. That is certainly a big challenge. And I'm not sure, Faith, I'm not sure what you have access to, but something that can help is any kind of an earplug. I actually got, I don't have it with me right now, but I actually just picked up these little they're like semi earplugs. They have this really cool engineering in them. They're not electric. They have this engineering inside of them that can actually dampen sound and let you focus on, depending on how you set it, you can focus on different wavelengths, or you can turn them all the way off. And it lets you. I use them when I go out to really loud movies or something. Once in a while, my wife will drive me to a concert, and I'll wear them, and it deafens a lot of the sound. It can help me find a quieter place to function. But kind of in the same wheelhouse, if you're somewhere that's really overbearing, put in some earbuds and put on some sunglasses here in like a darker, quieter place, and just try to do the best you can to try and create your own little space. If it's emergent, I'll go to the bathroom and close the door. If I need to be alone for a few minutes.
Nice. That's a good answer. All right, and it doesn't look like we have any. Oh, she also asked, "I have noise canceling headphones. Are those okay?"
Yeah, if it's that's kind of a question only you can answer, Faith, is if you're wearing them and you feel like you need space and quiet, ask yourself, is this enough quiet for me? If they are, then great. If not, then you might have to look for something that's a little bit more noise dampening. I haven't used noise dampening headphones. I don't know how effective they are, but they very well could be. Something else you can do, especially if they're headphones too, is that you can play maybe something soft and soothing through them to further dampen the noise and help you focus. I myself actually have a little Bluetooth speaker for my pillow, and I play
Oh,
really
really?
soft,
Wow.
quiet, relaxing synthetic sounds from the '80s through them, like the soft like pads, and I love stuff like that. I love all '80s sounding everything. And that helps me focus and sleep at night because sleeping is something else that I struggle a lot with.
Oh, you and me both. Like there
Yeah.
are times where it's like I wake up in the middle of the night and then I have a hard time getting back to sleep, or like there are times where I wake up and I still feel exhausted. So I feel
Yeah,
that.
definitely. I think that's also an autism thing. I need so many conditions to be just right. I have really high thread count sheets. My room has to be really cold. It's got to be pitch black.
Yeah,
Some
for
kind
me
of
it's
white
gotta be pitch
noise.
black too, because like if there are like night lights around, it's funny. Like as a kid, night light helped me out, but like nowadays it's like I need it pitch black so I can actually, try to get better at falling asleep.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I feel that.
So yeah, I think that is all the questions we have for today. So we can go ahead and wrap it up here. So thank you so much, Chris, for being part of our first ever special guest live stream. I gotta admit, I was pretty nervous at first, setting it all up, but like once we actually got into it, it was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was great, Stephen. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's really fun to be on a show and be interviewed by you, and I'm looking forward to having that posted on your YouTube channel to show my wife and my friends. That's
Yeah,
really cool. Thank you for
absolutely.
letting me
So
do this.
like once this live stream is over, it'll be saved for other people to see. So what I'll do tomorrow is I'll post this video to like my social media groups. And they should be able to like, be able to see it. And that's the nice thing about doing the special guest live streams on YouTube is that it actually saves the stream and you can like show it to other people later. And of course, if you want to share the stream too, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone I can think of, I'll send them a link for sure.
Awesome,
Thank you,
thanks.
Stephen.
So anyway, that brings us to the end of the special guest live stream. So for those that are watching live, thank you all so much. We actually had quite a few people here, which is honestly surprising, but in a great way. Had a lot of fun. Definitely want to do more of this in the future with more special guests. So if you're watching this, whether it be now or later, and if you're autistic or a relative of an autistic and want to share your story, email me at tostemac@gmail.com and we'll see if we could work something out. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Again, whether you're watching it live or later, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more. And I will see you next time. Take care.
Take care.